Hi guys, this is Kevin with Gardening Gays coming to you with our monthly garden tour. Wanted to give you an update on how things are growing. The season is starting to change. We're transitioning from spring into summer. Lots of rainy weather, which all of the flowers and plants are loving. So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll start over here on this end where we have our barrier that we've started building with some arborvitae plants that we have up. These trees we put up because the wind tends to rush over this way, and we have a lot of our more delicate flowers that are on the corner of the house, so we wanted to put something here to kind of protect those. Also, just kind of for a little visual interest down below, what you see here were daffodil stalks that we still have to trim back a little bit more now. Once those start blooming, daffodils and tulips, you trim them back in stages to allow for nutrients to still go down into the bulbs to provide great energy and a source of giving a good show the following year. So those are still yet to be trimmed down, but also what we've gone ahead and planted in between them are marigolds here and gazanias here. So those flowers will kind of grow up and fill in that space to add a little more brightness as the season goes on. Down here, one of my favorite hostas, which I believe is called a Remember Me hosta. You can see this variety. There are also several different names for this particular type. But the reason I like this one is because it has that gold center and then the outside is green. Typically there is an autumn frost hosta that has the opposite color effect where it's green on the inside and yellow on the outside, but you really can't go wrong with hostas, and they seem to be kind of the plant of the season everywhere we go. Everybody's bringing them home, and we see them out and about in a lot of neighborhoods these days. So we'll come on over this way. Again, we have more arborvitae that we planted about 2 years ago. Those are doing really well. In the front of them, right here along the back side, are lilies that are now in their third year of growing. So you can see just how nice and tall and strong, and just look at the thickness of that stalk there. So lots of great blooms on these. I mean, this one is just going to be bursting at the seams with blooms and color pretty soon. Right here in the front of that is a hydrangea, which is also starting to put its blooms on. And then down at the foot of that, we have more marigolds that we planted. And again, you can see some stalks that we cut back from hyacinth that were in bloom earlier in the season. Here on the front porch, in our 2 container pots, we have calla lilies that we were kind of worried about because it took a while for them to come up. But we kind of noticed that as soon as the weather began to get warmer, these really started to give us a little bit of life. We also kind of went in around the edges and planted some pansies that have yet to pop up. So we'll keep you updated and see when those actually start to show some signs of life in there. The round planters that are in the front, we have teddy bear dwarf sunflowers that are planted in here. Previously, this pot on both sides of the porch was planted with daffodils, which have already been cut back for the season. And then along them, adding some extra color, are petunias. And these are leftover potted petunias that we had that are on the deck in the planters that we posted in a previous video. Here along the back of those, we have morning glories in the purple pots, and we created a trellis here because those will be a climbing plant so that they can climb on up and bring that show right on up as you walk into the front door. So before we move along and continue to the flower garden, I wanted to mention again, show you the sidewalk paver that we installed a couple of days ago, and we'll add a link to that below. We're really enjoying having this extra walkway space. So this was a project that we tackled here recently, but we'll put the link below this video if you want to go ahead and check that one out too as well. Continuing on with the front flower bed, we have more hydrangeas that are right here along the side of the walkway. And then a lavender bush here that is really coming back out nicely. We kind of trimmed this back really good just to keep those stalks from turning into something that was too woody. And that's a technique that you want to do to make sure that you maintain really good blooms on this year after year. And you know, it's nice to just come in and get that moving, and that scent just really hits you in the face. So starting along the back, more arborvitae, those 4 that are planted there. Right in the front of them, we have an assortment of roses that we planted. You see some are starting to bloom here. We have 4 that are planted there. And in the front of those, a line of lilies. And you can see, unfortunately, that some of the lilies were decapitated. A couple of weeks ago, we had another bout of unseasonably cold weather. So Dragon and I came out. We wanted to cover up everything, to do our best to protect all the hard work we had done. And unfortunately, the way that the plastic we covered, that wind was just flapping the plastic up and down, and it ended up tearing off some of those buds before they got a chance to bloom. But this is the first year for this set of lilies that are planted here. And as you see, year 3 there, year 1 here. So even though we know we won't get blooms off of the ones we lost the heads on for this year, they'll come back next year even stronger. Right along the front of the lilies, these 2 lines are lines of coleus. They look similar to a variety of dusty, rusty coleus. These are, again, one of our favorite plants, very hardy. They can take full sun, full shade. We have lots of these planted inside the house as well. Along the front of the coleus, 2 rows of marigolds. We have 2 different varieties here. The variety that's along the back will grow a little bit higher than the ones in the front, as we wanted to do a little bit of stage down planting. And then right along the front of the marigolds, the barrier along the brick, are gazanias. Coming along on the back side of the flower bed now, here we have planted irisine. This is a blazing rose irisine, similar to the coleus, and this will grow to be about 20 inches tall and 18 to 24 inches wide. And just like with the coleus, if you come in and trim and pinch that down, you'll gotta get it to get a full bushiness that's in there. Right along the side of those are petunias that we propagated. Dragon, what's the name of these petunias again? Ooh. We'll find that and pop that up on the screen for you. But these are petunias that we grabbed and propagated, and those actually came out nicely. They're nice and healthy and really starting to get some growth on them. Of course, when we propagated them, we started them in the house and just put them into some water. Once the roots began to develop, put it into a starter normally. But with these in particular, we actually put those directly into dirt, into starter trays, and let those go ahead and develop that way. They did really well, got them into the ground, and they're continuing to grow. Along the back side, 2 more hydrangea bushes here, and kind of just peeking out in the front over the top of these tiger lilies is a lilac tree. Coming along the side now, back row here, 3 more roses that we've planted. These have just started to bloom. Look at that beautiful rose there. Lots of buds on that. That's going to be gorgeous this season. We have one here that's still kind of struggling to catch up with its siblings. And this one bloomed about a week or so ago. We've already kind of gone in and started to deadhead it, so that energy isn't being spent on some of the blooms that have already come up, but it will go into some like this that are still starting to push through. And then this will hopefully continue to do better, but we'll go ahead and deadhead that one soon here as well. As we make our way into the side flower bed, we start here. We have a lilac bush on each end. This is the first one here that we have. And then our hibiscus are just starting to really full out and come up here. You'll see that we put stakes behind each hibiscus, because as they come up and put on those blooms, they tend to get a little heavy and want to flop over. So this year we're going to tie them up so that they can be encouraged to stay a little bit more upright as they reach for the sun. Along in between all of those, you'll see what we've cut back. Spring bulbs that we had daffodils in here, and then also tulips. So we may go back in and do a little bit more trimming, but once again, we've left that just so they can continue to soak up that sun and get lots of energy and nutrients put into the bulbs to have a great show for next year. Hibiscus all the way down, along with 2 hydrangeas here that are starting to really fill in nicely and cover up this pipe. You saw kind of earlier in the season when this was still down, all of this was fully exposed, and it's finally starting to come into season now, bushing up really well. Coming on down, more hibiscus, and then once again at the end, flanking this flower bed along with a lilac tree. So let's go on into the back, check out a couple of more flowers before we get into the vegetable garden. So here we are in the backyard. We're going to start with flowers and herbs before we move on to the vegetable garden section. Over here in these three identical planters, we have dahlia that are just living their best life right now. They've really come alive. I mean, if you just take a look in here, look at how nice and thick this particular stalk is on this dahlia. One thing that we are still waiting to see if they're going to pop up is caladium that we planted kind of in the corners of these pots. Those still have not really shown any sign of life quite yet, but we're still holding out hope that as the weather gets warmer, that those will eventually start to make themselves known. Over here in the corner in this pot is a canna lily that we have, and those are really starting to come up nicely. Even some of the ones that we thought may not show are really starting to peek through here recently. And again, this plant should grow to be maybe about 4 feet tall in its first year, and then it should shoot up to maybe closer to 5 or 6 feet in years after that. These milk crates on this side have a variety of herbs in them. You know, we have some oregano, some dill, some parsley, some cilantro, and then the third plant over here is a strawberry plant, and this is really blooming up nicely. Lots of strawberries on this. We tried lots of different variations this season. I think this is probably the third one that we tried to plant. The other ones, for whatever reason, didn't really take. This was a little bit more of a mature plant when we bought it and put it in, and so far it's doing nice. As you may recall from a previous video, I showed you Dragon Strawberry Tower that we've done in previous years when we first started doing strawberries. Those did really well, and we decided to go with a different planting strategy this year. And third time's a charm with this one, it seems, as it's starting to really produce lots and lots of berries that are here. Right next to it is a fig tree that we have that we've planted. We've cut it back a couple of times, but it's still fairly young and has yet to produce any fruit. So we'll just continue to love on that and make sure that it gets fed with some fertilizer. Right here next to that, a couple more varieties of hydrangea. This one is starting to put on its blooms. Another hydrangea here. This one is similar to the one that's along the side of the house around the drainage poles. And then right along in here are those beautiful earth angel hostas that we planted recently. Aren't those gorgeous? These are right under the deck, getting just the right amount of shade that they need to thrive and just the right amount of sun. It's always beautiful to see just how that water tends to hang on to that angel silhouette on those leaves. More caladiums that we have planted, again in this spot right along the back of the house. Still waiting on those to show some signs of life, hopefully here soon with the warming weather. We have 3 identical planters right along in our seating area. Along the back of each, we have a variety of a hosta. Then we also have some Dracaena grass that's planted in them. We have impatiens. This one has that nice pink color. Creeping Jenny along the side to spill over. And then also some ivy as well that will pop out here. Coming along this side, similar. Only difference in this planter is in white impatient that's in the center. And then on this one, we have kind of another impatient that's a slightly different color. Tended to struggle a little bit when we put it in here, but we do see that there is still some great signs of reviving right in here. Still some blooms right back there that are coming out on that. This is the seating area that we put in here recently as well. We can also drop a link below that so you can see how we installed the gravel and the walkway here. In the planter here, we have caladiums again that were recently planted, so we're still waiting on those to pop up, as well as more caladium along the back here in this privacy fence area. And on the ground here next to the post is another Remember Me hosta that we actually had to transplant in order to place in the Earth Angel hostas that we saw a minute ago. Here nearby, in these little small pots, these are bromeliad plants. And the thing about these is that they only bloom once in their lifetime, which these have already bloomed. then they tend to put on these offshoots that may take several years for them to actually bloom, and the center of the plant dies. So you can, this is a good example here, you can kind of see this V where the mother plant was and put on a great show and then seeded itself, and then that particular one died. So this is still green and full of life, and we just kind of didn't want to discard it, so we've now placed it out here, and we're just gonna let it take its time and do its thing. Another planter here that we put in just kind of as a centerpiece of our view from the seating area is a Virtus maple, Virtus Japanese maple that's here, and beneath it is another impatient, white impatiens here, and then these are simply called polka dot plants, just for a little accent along the bottom of that planter. But great view when we're sitting here having our morning coffee or even some afternoon cocktails. Before we get into the vegetable garden, a couple more things. Some herbs that we have sitting here, some sage, oregano, and thyme. And then more morning glory in these pots with the green strings, again to give them a trellis for them to climb as they grow. Another morning glory on this side. And then just some assortment of leftover vegetables that we've had, as well as some, you can see here some petunia seeds there that we started from seeds for petunias, some gazanias, marigolds, and then some tomato plants. We've kind of started giving some of those away to our neighbors now that we have everything that we need planted out. And along on this side in these pots are just some begonias that we've had now for a couple of years and have brought them back outside. We wintered these over in the house, so they may still look a little bit rough right now, but as the weather warms up, these will start to really come back to life. And this little guy right here is a Persian shade plant that puts on these really amazing purple leaves, but this is once again a full shade plant, so we have it here under the deck. So now let's go ahead and get into this vegetable garden. So coming in here to our raised bed garden area, we start right here where we have some of our ornamental cabbage and kale that we had in our winter garden. And what we've done, Dragon took kind of the best of those. This first one is kale, the second two are cabbage. We wanted to keep these, if you allow those to continue to grow, they will flower, and then from flowering they will start to produce these peas here. So these are seeds, not quite ready to come out yet. We'll actually look at this one. These are starting to yellow a little bit. You can see the difference in color. They need a little more time to get a little more yellow on them, but once they do, they'll be ready for us to come in. We'll show you here. We'll snap these off, and inside of those, kind of like little peas. So see that? Those are the seeds that we will end up planting for seasons to come. So lots and lots of seeds here. Hopefully we don't have to worry about buying any more seeds for any ornamental kale or cabbage anytime soon. So since we're on this side, let's go ahead and continue with this particular bed. Quickly want to mention that we at one point had some celery that we buried here, but we've had lots of bird interest in our garden this season. So if any of you out there have any tips aside from sticking plastic forks in your garden to keep birds away, please comment below and let us know. The celery, we weren't that crazy about how we planted it. We literally just threw the seed down and decided to let it do its own thing, and what it did was tell the birds, come eat me. So we've pretty much lost that, but we have had some good success on this side with Swiss chard. You can see that this is really leafing up nicely. Those leaves are nice and strong. And on this end is garlic that we planted in the fall, sometime around October. It's looking a little not too good right now, but that's because we've had rain for the past couple of days, and it's also about time for it to be harvested. You can see that along the bottom, how these stalks are starting to change color and wither. That's how you know when it's about time to pull it. But because we've had rain, we want to go ahead and allow the weather to dry it out with some sun before we come in here and get to that. But when we do, we'll bring you a video on harvesting this, and also as well on how we end up harvesting the seeds out of those ornamental cabbage and kale. Side, you can see that we planted a different variety of garlic that we bought from a different store, and it didn't do as well as the first bed. But again, this is our first year planting garlic, so it's a learning year for us. each time that you do something, each season, each cycle, you learning from not only the earth and the ground that you're using, but the types of fruits, vegetables, and or flowers that you're putting down. So we'll continue here on this bed. You can see what we have growing here are just a few onions that we planted. Not sure if we're going to let those continue to germinate or we'll use them just for, pull the tops for making omelets or something. Right next to that, we have cabbage that are really, really starting to grow nicely. Really getting some nice width on them. Great hearts that are forming inside. I always love looking inside cabbage and seeing just how the water sits. It's always so pretty, like little diamonds that are just sitting in there. Next to the cabbage heads, we have broccoli that we're growing for the first time this year, and this is exciting. I mean, we buy broccoli all the time at the store. Personally, I've never seen broccoli grow, but look in here. I mean, just imagining when those start to really bunch up, it's so amazing just to watch. And the transformation with the water and also the sunshine, all of this is really, really going to start to give us lots and lots of growth and lots of life. The second half of this bed is all tomatoes and peppers. Along the back side here, we have tomatoes. These first three on this end, this triangle of tomatoes, are actually tomatoes that we started inside from seed. Those seeded tomatoes that we planted were struggling a lot this season. So as the season kind of started getting a little later than we like to plant tomatoes, we went to the store and we bought a variety of Bonnie Plants tomatoes that we put down, and all of those have done really, really well. Along the front here coming in, we have an assortment of peppers. We have some jalapeno peppers, we have some sweet peppers, and I believe there are also some bell peppers that are planted there. And then on the front of those, some leftover gazanias that we decided to go on and put on in. We always like to add a little extra beauty with some flowers to our vegetable garden area, also to kind of attract some pollinators, which will be good as well too for whatever it is that you're growing. Coming on over into our last bed here, we have along the back whole beans that are growing, another trellis that Dragon has built, and you can see how these vines are really growing up. I mean, look at this on this end. This one is really, really reaching right now. So this is just a fun project that we did this year. Last year we grew bush beans and we had a great success with the first batch. We planted a second batch of bush beans and they didn't do as well as the first. And so this year we decided to just try a different variety altogether and go with the pole beans. And so far we're really, really pleased with that. 3 different varieties of lettuce that we have here. Here we have a bib lettuce. This will kind of get a heart on it as it continues to develop here. Romaine lettuce here, which we buy a lot of at the store. And then on this end we have a Simpson lettuce, which you see has this texture and kind of a lighter hue to the green than the other two do. Right along the back here, these two are zucchini squash that we've planted, and you can see there's kind of nothing around it because if you've ever planted zucchini squash, you'll know that the leaves on those just get enormous. So this is going to need a lot of room before it's over. Those leaves will be kind of trailing all along the back and alongside in here. Also here on the back in this planter, we have planted some zinnias here. And on this side, Dragon, what do we have here? Cucumber. Cucumber here that will also need a place to grow. So we will eventually kind of secure down this bamboo stick for climbing for them. So that's about it for us for this month's garden tour. As you can see, everything is really, really coming to life from when we started planting everything from seed and tray inside the house back in February to now we're ending May, coming into June. Still having lots of rain, lots of sunshine that's coming. So we're really looking forward to this year's harvest and this year's bounty, and to share it with all of you, our viewers. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.